It was a prize beyond measure, a seat in the United States Senate, a position of immense power and influence, coveted by many, attained by few. To hold such a seat was to shape the course of history, to represent the voices of millions, and to wield the authority to change lives. Once held by Barack Obama, a man who rose from the Illinois Senate to the highest office in the land, the presidency itself. His tenure in that seat was a springboard, a testament to the potential it held. For Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, however, it became something else entirely. A golden ticket to be sold, a commodity to be bartered, a personal piggy bank to be raided. The gravity of the office, the responsibility to the people, seemed to vanish in the face of personal ambition. The phone lines buzzed with secret conversations, hushed tones and coded language filling the airwaves. As the governor allegedly tried to auction off the Senate seat for personal gain, seeking to line his own pockets and secure his family's future through illicit means. Federal wiretaps captured every word, every scheme, every whispered promise. Exposing a political drama fueled by greed, ambition, and a shocking disregard for the public trust. The recordings painted a vivid picture of a governor willing to sell his state's most valuable asset. Blagojevich described the seat as F*ing golden, a vulgar assessment that revealed his true intentions. Refusing to give it up for nothing, determined to extract maximum value from the opportunity, regardless of the consequences. The list of potential rewards was long, a veritable wish list of personal benefits. A high-paying job for himself after leaving office. A lucrative position for his wife, offering her a chance to climb the corporate ladder. Campaign cash, anything was on the table, no request too outrageous, no demand too unreasonable. It was a political auction, a brazen display of corruption that shocked the nation. The highest bidder set to win a seat among the nation's most powerful, a chance to shape legislation and influence policy at the highest levels. But as the FBI listened intently, documenting every word in action, they realized this was more than a simple cash for favors scheme, it was a complex web of deceit and manipulation. The web was tangled, the motivations complex, the players numerous and their roles intertwined. The governor was juggling multiple plots, each more audacious than the last. Playing a dangerous game with the future of his state and his own freedom. The sale of the Senate seat was just the beginning, the tip of a very large iceberg. Something even more audacious was lurking in the shadows of those calls, a deeper level of corruption waiting to be exposed. The air in Chicago was electric after Obama's win, filled with hope and promise for a new era. But behind the celebration, a darker history was being made, a story of betrayal and abuse of power. In the governor's office, the phone rang with offers and demands, a constant stream of opportunities to exploit his position. Not for public service, but for personal enrichment, a blatant disregard for the oath he had sworn. The conversations were brazen, shockingly candid in their discussion of illegal activities. Almost comical in their audacity, if not for the serious implications for the people of Illinois. The FBI had the evidence, meticulously collected and carefully analyzed. But the real story was just starting to unfold, the full extent of the corruption yet to be revealed. The golden seat was only the first act in a much larger drama, a prelude to a far more extensive scandal. What came next would redefine the entire scandal, exposing a level of corruption that few could have imagined. The governor's greed was about to shake the foundations of American politics, sending shockwaves through the system. The stage was set for a fall from grace, a dramatic downfall that would captivate the nation. The real story was about to begin, and the truth would be more shocking than anyone could have predicted. The man with the famous hair. Who was Rod Blagojevich? A name that once echoed through the halls of power, now synonymous with political scandal. Of Illinois, he was a charismatic politician, a captivating figure with a famous head of hair and a populist message that resonated with many. He seemed to understand their struggles, their hopes, and their dreams. The son of a Serbian immigrant, his story was the American dream personified. He rose from humble beginnings, overcoming adversity to reach the pinnacle of state power, the governor's mansion, promising reform and a new era of transparency. He carefully projected the image of a regular guy, someone you could grab a beer with, someone who understood the everyday struggles of ordinary citizens. Jogging, staying fit. Shaking hands, connecting with people on a personal level. And charming voters with his down-to-earth demeanor and infectious enthusiasm. But behind the ever-present smile, whispers and rumors swirled, a growing unease about the way things were being done. Pay-to-play politics, where access and influence came at a price. Contracts for donors, raising questions about fairness and transparency in government dealings. A growing cloud of suspicion that threatened to engulf his administration. Friends and fundraisers were indicted, facing serious charges that cast a dark shadow over the governor's office. But Blagojevich always seemed untouched, seemingly immune to the scandals that plagued those around him. Insisting he was fighting corruption, a champion of the people battling against the entrenched interests of the political establishment. He was re-elected despite mounting investigations, a testament to his charisma and his ability to connect with voters. His Teflon image seemingly intact, able to deflect any criticism or accusation. Yet, beneath the surface, a sense of entitlement grew, fueled by power and unchecked ambition. Public office, meant to serve the people, became a personal piggy bank, a source of personal enrichment. The whispers grew louder, spreading like wildfire through the state capitol and beyond. Federal agents closed in, meticulously gathering evidence, building a case that would shake the foundations of Illinois politics. And the man who promised to clean up Illinois, to drain the swamp of corruption, was about to become its most infamous cautionary tale, a symbol of greed and the abuse of power. The stage was set for a spectacular fall from grace, a dramatic unraveling of a carefully constructed image. The people's governor was about to be unmasked, his true colors revealed for all the world to see. The perfectly coiffed hair, a symbol of his carefully crafted image, couldn't hide the truth forever. The reckoning was coming, and the consequences would be devastating. A governor's game. Pause. As governor, Blagojevich wielded power with reckless abandon. Federal investigators uncovered a pattern. State contracts and appointments. Traded for campaign cash. Need a contract? Make a donation. Want a board seat? Open your checkbook. Even the health of sick children became a bargaining chip. State funding for a hospital, in exchange for a contribution. The governor's obsession with money drove every decision. His inner circle enforced the pay-to-play system, turning public service into a marketplace. The schemes grew bolder. As the federal net tightened, the Senate seat was the ultimate prize. A jackpot that could set him up for life. Blagojevich was gambling with his career, his freedom, and the trust of the people. Whispers on the wire. Pause. The FBI's wiretaps were the turning point. For weeks, agents listened as Blagojevich laid out his schemes in his own voice. The governor and his advisors openly discussed trading the Senate seat for jobs, cash, or political favors. The tapes revealed more shakedowns of hospital executives, threats against newspaper editors, a sprawling criminal enterprise. Blagojevich spoke freely, unaware every word was evidence. The FBI knew they had to act fast, the Senate appointment was imminent. The whispers on the wire became a roar. The time for listening was over. The time for action had come. The governor's downfall was set in motion. The next move would be decisive. The pre-dawn raid. December 9, 2008. Before dawn, federal agents surrounded the governor's home. At 6:15 a.m., they knocked. Blagojevich, Illinois' most powerful man, was arrested. The scene was surreal. A governor led away in handcuffs, the culmination of years of investigation. U.S. Attorney Patrick Fitzgerald called it a political corruption crime spree. The criminal complaint read like a gangster movie: extortion, bribery, fraud. The most shocking, the attempt to sell Obama's Senate seat. Blagojevich even considered appointing himself. The evidence was overwhelming, but prosecutors held something back. Buried in the wiretaps was another plot, personal, vindictive, and explosive. The public had only seen the tip of the iceberg. The biggest twist was yet to come. The story was far from over. The People versus Blagojevich. The arrest of Rod Blagojevich sent shockwaves through the political landscape, immediately sparking a media circus. News cameras swarmed the courthouse, reporters clamored for information, and the nation watched as the legal battle began to unfold. The charges were serious, the implications far-reaching, and the public was captivated by the unfolding drama. Blagojevich, however, refused to go quietly. He maintained his innocence from the very beginning, setting the stage for a protracted and highly public fight. Instead of retreating from the spotlight, he embraced it. He hit the talk show circuit with a vengeance, proclaiming his innocence to anyone who would listen. He argued that he was being unfairly targeted, a victim of political persecution. In a move that further blurred the lines between politics and entertainment, he even appeared on The Celebrity Apprentice, showcasing his personality and attempting to rehabilitate his image. His first trial was a setback for the prosecution, ending in a hung jury on most counts. The jurors were unable to reach a unanimous verdict, leaving the case in limbo and raising questions about the strength of the evidence. There was only one conviction for lying to the FBI, a relatively minor charge compared to the original accusations. Undeterred, the prosecution decided to retry him, this time focusing on the damning wiretaps that had captured Blagojevich's conversations. This time, the jury heard Blagojevich's own words, unfiltered and unedited. They listened to him plotting, scheming, and brazenly declaring that the Senate seat was F***ing golden, a commodity to be bought and sold. The defense argued that it was just political talk, typical of the rough-and-tumble world of Illinois politics. But the tapes were too powerful, too explicit, and too damaging to ignore. The jury, this time, found him guilty on 17 counts, a sweeping victory for the prosecution. Wire fraud, extortion, and the attempted sale of the Senate seat, the very act that had triggered the investigation in the first place. The showman governor, once a rising star in the Democratic Party, was now a convicted felon, his political career in ruins. Justice seemed served, at least on the surface. But the public still didn't know the whole story, the full extent of the corruption that had plagued Illinois politics for so long. The most shocking details from the wiretaps, the ones that painted the darkest picture of Blagojevich's actions, were kept out of court, deemed inadmissible for various legal reasons. The truth, as it often does in cases of political corruption, was even darker and more complex than anyone realized. The saga wasn't over, not by a long shot. The secrets ran deeper than anyone could have imagined, implicating others and revealing a web of influence that stretched far beyond Blagojevich himself. The final act was still to come, a concluding chapter that would expose the hidden truths and reveal the full extent of the corruption. The fall from grace was complete and utter, but the reckoning continued, with more revelations and consequences yet to come. The people had their verdict, delivered through the justice system, but the full story remained shrouded in mystery. But the story had one last twist, a final surprise that would challenge everything the public thought they knew about the case. A sentence, a commutation in December 2011, Blagojevich was sentenced to 14 years in federal prison, one of the harshest penalties for political corruption in Illinois history. The judge called his crimes an immeasurable betrayal of public trust. Blagojevich apologized, but the damage was done. He became inmate 48,992-424, teaching classes and playing in a prison band as his famous hair turned gray. His family fought for his release, arguing the sentence was too harsh. His wife, Patty, pleaded his case to President Donald Trump, a former Celebrity Apprentice host who had once fired Blagojevich on TV. Trump, skeptical of deep state prosecutions, saw parallels to his own battles. In February 2020, Trump commuted Blagojevich's sentence. After nearly 8 years, he returned to Chicago, defiant and unrepentant. He called himself a political prisoner, never admitting guilt. But even his release wasn't the final twist. The most stunning secret from the wiretaps remained hidden. The story wasn't finished. The unseen hand. To understand the final twist, we return to the wiretaps. While the world focused on the Senate seat, the FBI heard something more personal. Patty Blagojevich, the governor's wife, was no bystander, she was an active participant. The tapes captured her urging Rod to be more aggressive, even suggesting he use his power to punish critics at the Chicago Tribune. "Hold up that F***ing Cubs deal," she said, targeting the Tribune's ownership. Prosecutors kept these tapes from the jury, fearing they'd derail the case. Charging Patty risked creating sympathy for the family and complicating the trial. So they focused on Rod, leaving Patty's role in the shadows. The public never heard the full extent of her involvement. But even that wasn't the darkest secret. One final betrayal remained. The final betrayal, the most shocking revelation, was never made public during the trial. On the wiretaps, Blagojevich was caught discussing appointing his own young daughter to a lucrative state board, purely for the paycheck. She was just a child, unqualified, but he saw her as a financial asset. The plan was never carried out, but the fact it was considered revealed a man consumed by greed. This detail was too toxic for court, but it remains the darkest secret of all. Blagojevich's story isn't just about political corruption, it's about the corrosion of character. The sale of a Senate seat was a crime against the state. Using his own child as a pawn was a crime of the soul. In the end, that's the most unforgettable betrayal of all.